tension.
It makes it, that made it way more, way more tense.
Yeah, I know. I just think about that yesterday. Is like I need to get rid of that because like every time I press it, it just like ruins the flow.
For me, it was like, you know, the NASA rocket ship countdown. That's what that I was just counting down like five, four, three.
Anyway, man, look, thank you very much for joining me today on the podcast. So naturally enough, right, you are like a month post Worlds now, right? So how's things been going for you?
It's thanks for having me on. First of all, happy to be here. Uh, it's been going really good, man. It's actually been going a lot better than what I expected. I expected to be really suffering this period. More so, I expected to be suffering with the loss of a goal. Like I had blinders on for such a long time, and I just expected to be in no man's land post prep, and that's the thing I was most worried about. After the show, I wasn't too concerned with like binging, going too hard with food. I think in part I wasn't too worried about that because of the approach I took throughout my prep. Um, but I have to say, this period has been going really well. I didn't expect to feel so good so soon in terms of my energy levels. I think after the first week post prep, I was pretty much back to normal. And like my girlfriend was saying to me, she's like, I have my boyfriend back, like already. Um, because as you know, you kind of towards the end you lose a bit of yourself and your will to live.
Yeah, for sure.
So she reckons I came back after a week, and to be honest, I felt good after a week. So this period has been going really well. I've been on a holiday since. It's the Christmas period, so I'm just taking it nice and easy with the family, friends at home. So it's been going really well.
It's incredible to hear. Yeah, because like it's typically the time when most people probably find the hardest. You know, had Nico Wyszynski. Oh, I'm gonna fuck up his surname. Polish surnames are always
Yeah,
a
I'm
mouthful for any Irish person. But he was like talking about how you know obviously how much he was struggling post show, and I think one thing you alluded to there is a very important part of like the post show period is like trying to overcome the loss of the goal. So I guess like do you have you like did you do like some goal setting before you even finished your season, or what did you have to look forward to after?
No, I didn't actually do any goal setting prior to the season ending, because I just knew I took the last 2 years have been very intense in terms of like I had this on my mind, this prep for the last 2 years, and I was so goal orientated towards that. A lot of my actions were aligned towards that. So I just knew I needed to take it easy. I knew I needed to get a little bit fatter and just keep doing what I was doing, just keep training, keep enjoying it. So while I have no goals set currently, the goal really is to just enjoy a little bit of life, bring life back into my physique, back to my health, back to my body, like give back to my systems, let the hormones come back to baseline. And then next year, I just love training. So I think I will maybe switch up my program a little bit, set some performance goals with certain movements, maybe set some like give myself a new exercise to sort of work on to like make things a little bit more exciting again. Because I've been following the same program pretty much for the last 2 years. It's been refined the last 2 years, but very little has changed. But no, I haven't put too much thought into it. It's almost like I'm just giving myself this time to like unwind, recharge the batteries, so I can go again and apply the intensity that I need to apply to my training going forward to make some improvements to my physique and my strength.
Yeah, I think from watching your training, you seem to have like a training style that would kind of lend itself very, very well to putting on that extra little bit of timber post prep as well. So it makes it like I was doing powerlifting for years prior to doing my own my competition prep, and I just remember being itching to get back into doing those lifts and having those lifts feel good. Not the same way it would have been like, you know, say for example, if my leg press was going down towards the end of a prep or something like that, I wouldn't have had the same like drive to be like, oh, I can't wait for after prep to be finished and I'm gonna go at the leg press really hard. But be like, okay, I'm gonna start building bench again. I'm gonna start building my deadlift again. Squats, they're feeding that little bit nicer now that I've got a little bit more kind of cushion around my midsection. Your kind of training kind of seems similar to that. Like you have like the like your exertion squats, you have the like your dips, a lot of movements that are like I don't know, setting number based goals is a little bit funner than setting it on like, you know, machine.
I couldn't agree more. And a lot of my thought process towards my own training is just that. It's like it's fun. Like a lot of what I do in my training, I just enjoy doing it. It really excites me, like doing some of those lifts, and I like being strong. I really do. It's something I've
Mm.
learned to really value is like getting ridiculous, stupidly strong. Like no need to be lifting what you're lifting, but I just get a buzz off that, and that's the thing that gets me. It's one of the things, one of the many things that keeps me coming back to the gym, but it keeps training very interesting for me, even after I've been training for 14 years. Even after 14 years, I'm still as curious as ever, still excited as ever. And part of that is just because I like to keep my training fun. And yeah, I love those lifts, like dips, searcher squats, the ones that really scare the living daylights out of me. They're the ones that really excite me.
Yeah, it's that feeling when you're sitting in your car before you go into the gym and you're like, God, I can't believe I'm signing myself up to do to do these lifts. Especially something like Xerxes squats. I've never done those, but I know the feeling. Like you're coming close to. I'll be coming close to the competition week of a powerlifting prep, and I'll be in knee wraps. If I misgroove a squat, I could just tear my quads. With the weights on my back could potentially crush me, and you're just sitting in your car waiting to go in. You're like, my goodness, why did I choose this to be my hobby? But then you do it, and then you get overcome the lift, and you're like, oh my god, that's the feeling after completing the lift and doing that hard thing. It's like if you could bottle that up and like sell it as a drug, you'd be a very rich man.
Exactly. And like I just before this, I came on here, I just trained legs and arms, and I don't know if you noticed, but I was so out of breath when we first got on the call. I was like still gathering myself. But no, dude, I've seen you. Like, how did you feel? Definitely the last 4 weeks, I've seen you deadlift like 230, 220 for reps of like
Hmm.
between 7 and 10. And there was one time I was watching and I was just going to my girlfriend. I was like, hey, look at this. I was like, that's 230 for like 10 reps. I was like, that's badass. She doesn't care, but I'm just like, I'm into it and I
Yeah.
want to show her. Like I love like that's incredible. I don't think I've ever deadlifted over 200 kilos. And to see you just like rip and pull 230 off the floor for rep and rep and rep,
Mm.
that must be nerve-wracking before doing something like that.
I, it's likely just similar to like the likes of your dips or your exertion squats, right? Like you adapt to the mental stress of it, right? And I guess because I know I've done such heavier weight, to me it also seems like I'm not really kind of doing much either. Like I've deadlifted 280 for a triple, so coming in and doing 220, 230 for reps, it's just like I've done such a greater percentage of this that it should feel relatively light, right? And I think that like level of confidence coming into actual session two just allows me to perform without having too much arousal, so I think that's like definitely one benefit of having done powerlifting like prior to doing bodybuilding is that like a lot of the stuff that is hard in bodybuilding just doesn't really seem as hard relative to the really hard scary shit that you do in in bodybuilding, sorry, in powerlifting, right? Because it's usually the last couple of reps before you hit failure that you really have to brace in and get yourself kind of amped up for the likes of bodybuilding training. But before that, you might have a couple of relatively easy reps. So it's really just trying to keep focused during those. But when it comes to powerlifting, it's like from rep one, like you could be shaking, and you might how you perform in your first rep might just like ruin the rest of the set. So I think there's a big benefit and crossover from that. Have you ever tried powerlifting?
No, I was just going to say I couldn't agree more. I've never done powerlifting, but I've aimed for 100 maxes with the lifts I do. Never done a powerlifting comp. Like it's
Mm,
two different things. Like you have to be ready
yeah,
for a given day. Whereas I've like done really heavy 100 maxes on the days that I felt good.
yeah.
Whereas you have to peak for that day. So I'd imagine it's very different. Tensions are a lot higher. But I've done 100 maxes with like Zercher squats, dips. I worked up to a 200 kilo Zercher squat for the first time last year. I worked up to a 100 kilo dip this year, like weighted dip. So I've experienced the same benefit, exactly what you're talking about. It's funny when you don't do the same lift. Like it's alien to me looking at you do that with deadlifts. But when we think about it, we're doing the same thing just with different exercises.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen this. I can go into I can attach 40 kilos to a belt now for dips. and be absolutely fine going into it, confident going into it. Because I'm like, I've done this with 90 kilos, I've done this with 100 kilos, 80 kilos is fine. It's still an absurd weight to do on that exercise, but because you've done heavier, it does give you that confidence going into that. So yeah, I can completely relate, but not the powerlifting thing. I don't think I couldn't do powerlifting because I'm so bad at deadlifting. I don't barbell back squat anymore. I love benching. All of 2024, my trainer was really geared towards getting a 170 kilo bench press, which I got. I took my bench from like 150 kilos in December 2023 to 170 by August 2024. So I was really, really happy
Yeah.
with that. But no, I don't deadlift. I don't lower back squat. Part of that is due to a lower back injury I picked up like 8 years ago that like I still have to manage
Scared you.
with my trainer. Yeah.
Yeah. I seen you were working with TJ the for the bench as well, for the bench goal.
Yes, that's right.
I never got my bench up to 170. 6'5", that's as close as I've gotten.
Hold on.
Maybe we'll put a bit more size on it. The bodybuilding is going to help.
Did you do 165 with a pause?
Yeah.
Well, there you
Yeah.
go.
In competition.
170 and in competition. Two different things, man. I did the 170 bench on just a random day, was doing the warm-up sets, and was like, this feels good, this feels good, this feels good. Boom, got it. Wasn't in like a competition setting. So I'd argue that your pause 165, no question, that's way more impressive than my 170 on a day that I felt good.
Well, I still can't tell people that I can bench 170, so it doesn't matter
That's true.
in my eyes. So I guess like a question for you here is like obviously when it comes to, and I guess I'm kind of derailing the conversation before we even get really into it. When it comes to like peaking for strength or like training towards a order max for squat, bench, deadlift, like you're typically going to follow like a powerlifting style training setup. Everything's going to be geared around preparing you to perform the best on those three specific lifts. So that comes down to you have competition lift in your move in your program. You have secondary lifts that target maybe a technical aspect of the lift, and then you have some accessories based off like the muscle groups that are looking to actually build that pattern, right? So when it does come to you work out towards that 200 kilo exertion squat or the 100 kilo plus your body weight dip, like will you have had like a specific type of like strategy for that? Like, would you be like, okay, I'm deserter squatting X amount of times per week, or doing dips X amount of times per week, varying up intensities between sessions, or how would you have gone about that?
No, no real specific periodization strategy. The only time I did that was working with TJ for the bench press. He helped me out a
Mm-hmm.
lot, gear myself towards that goal, and I learned a lot from that. So that was the only time I did follow like a real strict periodized plan. When it came to, but still like, the bench press, as I said, like I got that on just like a random day that I felt good because there was days I planned like to peak myself, not in a competition, but for like a bench press session, and it just I didn't feel great and it was terrible. Like ended up like failing on like let's say numbers that I got 4 weeks prior to that. Didn't get it that day. For whatever reason, it might have been the psychological component of like going in knowing that I had to do this and it might have psyched myself out or just could have been a bad day in the gym. But for the dips and the Zercher squat, no, it was just one of those things where for those lifts, both lifts actually, I follow like a top and back offset protocol
Mm-hmm.
where the top set is usually like anywhere from 4 to 8 reps, lift quite heavy, give myself a good break. Then the back offset is a higher rep set, 10 to 12 reps. And then I would try and get stronger within those rep range, within that rep range, those two sets. And then like every 4 weeks, I wanted to do like singles. May not have been like a 1 rep max per se, but I wanted to like get like a 90% of like my 1 rep max or 95%, just so I still have that skill of lifting really heavy. And it was also I was doing it regularly enough, like every 4 weeks, to kind of test the waters a little bit. And again, it was just one of those things where I was curious. Every 4 weeks, I was like, okay, how strong am I getting? And like if my 1 rep max was also increasing, like those singles were getting stronger, that was telling me I was probably building more muscle tissue throughout my training as well. So it was kind of like both things were really benefiting my training all around, like strength and hypertrophy, like the approach I took, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah, well, like I guess because like it's a good kind of proxy there as well, because you're not necessarily training yourself to do singles either. Say for example, like you can increase your one max or increase your strength on singles just by getting better at the skill of performing more singles. Whereas if you're only doing like every couple of weeks, what you're seeing then you're making progressions within the rep ranges that you're using, like in the more kind of like, it could be like 4 to 6 rep range, 6 to 10, wherever it may be. And you're seeing those go up, as well as that, like that single, which could even be within 10% of your max. It's a pretty good proxy that, like, well, obviously top end strength's going up, but like there's probably some changes happening underneath the hood from a muscular perspective. So that's pretty cool. I wouldn't have thought of to use that type of strategy myself.
Yeah, and you know what it is too? We had, do you know a guy called Sean McInroy, Australian dude?
Yes, actually, yeah. I think actually when I was living in Canada, he would have trained in the gym that I was in the odd time, Pure Muscle Fitness. I think I
Okay.
saw him in there a few times.
Yeah, he's like a strength and conditioning coach in Australia. And he's like he's a huge following as well. I can't remember what it was. I think it's like 300K or 400K because he's quite funny. Like he's Australian, he's gas on camera. But we got him to come down to us. He's doing seminars in Ireland, so he came down to our gym, Precision PT here in Tuam, Galway. And I asked him, I was like, I asked him about like how he periodized himself to work up to a 300 kilo squat he did in base gym, in Sebastian Orb's gym. And then he said to me, he started laughing. He was like, look, man, I've been training a long time and I kind of just do what I want to do when I go into a gym. And if I'm feeling good, I'll go for it. And I remember just being like, I wanted him to give me specific like rep
Yeah.
ranges or P set a plan he followed. He didn't have that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take that and run with it. And you know yourself, if you start doing warm up sets and they're feeling good, I had that at the back of my mind. If this is feeling good, go for it. On a day, warm up sets are a great indicator as to how you're feeling and how like your performance is going to go that day. So I just took like that advice on board. I was like, if I feel good, go, just try it out and see. So I kind of like had that in the back of my mind as well with those like singles and trying those like every 4 weeks.
hmm Yeah, and it comes back to as well, like, I guess keeping training enjoyable for yourself, right? Because like, like if you're talking to somebody about like pure hypertrophy training, you probably wouldn't tell them to, kind of work up to 100 maxes just when they're feeling good, right? You just say, hey, just follow your program, do your sets, and push close to failure. But I guess from a long term perspective, I do think it is really important to have those aspects of your training that, like, they may not necessarily make sense for like any specific goal other than just being fun to do. And I actually think that's something that a lot of people are probably going to be missing out on right now with the amount of like shite information there is on social media. Like there's so much. I don't know if it all floods my Instagram, unfortunately, like science-based lifting, just like fill it bands, chains, cuffs, and shortening moment arms and all this bollocks. And it's very like, how to say, method driven versus principle driven. So it's all like, use this rep range, only this many sets, this, that, and the other, because too much fatigue, blah blah blah. Like sometimes you just want to fucking go into the gym and just do something that doesn't make a huge amount of sense. Like even with my own program recently, I work for AJ Morris, so I can get in shape for my next competition season, right? And I was doing RDLs for a good period of time. Got up to like I think 225 for 6 or 7 or something like that, and I just rotate them out because like they just weren't really going anywhere. So put in deadlifts. Deadlifts from a pure hypertrophy point of view may not necessarily be the number one exercise for growing anything, but they're fucking fun and I like doing them. And it just adds a little bit of enjoyment to my training session. And even if I've had bench press put back in, bench press might not necessarily be as good for me as another movement, but I like fucking doing it, And if that's going to keep me coming to the gym and keep me pushing hard, everything else that I'm doing within the program is targeted towards this specific goal. So you have like a singular or even two aspects of your program or given training day that are just there for pure like, this is keeping me showing up. This is giving me that drive, that feeling of sitting in the car, dreading coming in, and then the sensation of after you complete the lift. If you have those in your program, you're going to be completely fine if everything else is then more tailored towards the goal. That's like the way I look at it.
I agree. I think the same. And If you have that mindset, you're going to enjoy training more. If you enjoy training, you're going to stick to it long enough to actually see the results you want to see, which is ultimately, you just need to be doing this for a long time. Like, you know yourself, as hard as you train day in, day out, week in, week out, you're not expecting anything short term. Like, as hard as you train, you have the long term mindset in sight. But then, like, to your point, then as well, where you were talking about the deadlifts, like they might be the best thing for hypertrophy. But then there's like, there's clues that people leave. People who've walked the walk leave. And like, you see people who deadlift, like, in theory, there's not a lot of muscles that are stretching, shortening and stretching. But then you see a lot of people who deadlift and get really strong at that movement who have insane posterior chains. So
Hmm.
it's like, okay, the theory says like the deadlift may not be the most optimal movement. But then in real life, I've seen people with ridiculous posterior chains, be it their back, their glutes, um, they deadlift and they're humongous from the back,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, yeah. There definitely is like a lot of that, like in bodybuilding and physique development. Like even with everything we know about training, like from training studies now, and like we just don't really have the full picture because again, a lot of training studies have limitations themselves. You have to look at those with a pinch of salt, and then you're also looking like anecdotal evidence. Well, obviously you don't want to just listen to the bros for everything because a broken clock can be can be right twice a day. At the same time, I definitely would agree with your assessment there. And you see with powerlifters too, like find me like a really really strong powerlifter that has like a small chest or like small triceps or like a big squatter with small quads. Generally the team goes when people get up to extreme levels of strength. They've been doing it for a long time. They're going to have these muscle groups to be fairly well developed. And that's not to say that they're going to be the best exercise for everybody all the time. There's definitely going to be there's definitely the skill aspects there too. There's going to be people who are going to be built better for one exercise versus the other. It's not going to like give them the same effect. But that's the process of the training journey, right? Like you said, you've been training for 14 years, been training for 15 years. You learn there's some exercises that you just don't really like, that don't really seem to click for you, and you try them for a while, discard them. You come back to them, maybe give them another shot. Maybe say maybe it's just because it's inexperienced. You give them a go, they still don't work. You just say okay, I'm just going to put that one to the side. But then you'll have exercise which you come back to and say, you know what? Actually, discounted this exercise for me. That would have been like, an RDL or a stiff leg deadlift. Oh, it always hurts my back. But
Mhm.
then you learn how to brace, you learn how to hinge, and you actually develop a pair of glutes, and you're like, oh, okay, it doesn't hurt my back as much anymore. So I think that's a very important kind of aspect to think about. I guess like one thing I want to kind of go into, right, is like how you got into training, right? Because you've been training for a long time. As you said, you trained 14 years. Like, bring me back to, David 14 years ago. What kind of inspired him to get into the gym and, start lifting iron?
You're coming all the way back. You're coming out to Tuam, County
Yeah.
Galway. I'm 14 years of age, or 13, 14. I'm in the back of my mom's car, like going to collect my eldest brother, Keith, from rugby training. And I just remember him coming down from the rugby clubhouse and coming to the car. And mom was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm up in the gym." I didn't see a gym, but I just heard him say he was in the gym. And from there, something, it just like there was a spark. And then from there, like whatever weights he had up in his room, I would always go up to his room, steal his weights, bring them down to my room. He would always be killing me every week, like taking them back up, giving out to me. But I became very obsessed. I would come home from school. I wouldn't do homework. I was a terrible, terrible student in school. Like, so, so bad. I would just come home from school and instead of I'd have my homework in front of me. I'd be looking at like YouTube, looking at boys like the OGs. There'd be like, you're talking like Greg Plate, maybe Matt August. Do you remember Mike Chang?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Six pack
That's right.
shortcuts.
Yeah. I was looking at all that, man. I was basically doing all those workouts. I would be down in my room for an hour and a half, not having a clue what I was doing. And things were definitely not optimal, but the desire was there from a very young age. So I suppose my brother got me into it. I also just like the idea of having like a strong physique. I've always aspired to that as well because I love movies and I always love characters who would like have a deadly deadly physique, and I've always loved that from a young age. I still do. And I suppose the thing that just keeps me training is just the fact that I enjoy it. You start training for one thing, what keeps you going, it turns out to be another thing. You just see that training gives you gives you something that you didn't actually expect along the way.
Mm. Yeah, you mentioned a couple of your inspirations there, which are very much OGs, like Greg Play. God, like that was like one of like the initial like people I remember seeing. Like, I want to look like that when, when I'm older. You know, God rest his soul. Like, I think he died doing like one of the most crazy stunts. I think he was like trying to jump in front of a train or something like that. He was on train track and jump. Yeah, like it wasn't suicide. It was just like he was trying to do a stunt or something, which I think is. But he went out the way he like he was living
It
his
was
lifestyle like
nuts.
that.
Dude,
Yeah.
I remember where I was when I found out he was dead. I was in the gym. I was in like my Gaelic football clubhouse. And I remember the exact moment I found out, I was absolutely heartbroken at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah. You like I remember like you always see videos of him like in like Machiavelli motivation like clips
Yes.
on in gyms and stuff like that, which is cool. But yeah, I think he would definitely pave the way for a lot of people. In terms of the YouTube fitness. Who are some other of the people that I guess would have inspired you towards today? Because I know that like you worked with 3D&J for your first prep, was it? With Jeff Alberts, you said.
No, Jeff Alberts was my second prep. My first prep,
Oh, okay.
I won't name the coach, but he was
Yeah.
a terrible coach. It was a bad experience. But
Okay.
very useful, very useful experience in that I learned what not to do and learned
Mhm.
that was not the type of coach I wanted to be. And then the following year, worked with Jeff Alberts and was like, okay, this is what coaching can be. This is what it should be. They were worlds apart. I've learned from so many people, man, and still learn from so many people. Like, there's so many good people. We like to talk about, like, there's a lot of shit online nowadays, and there is, but there's so many good people out there as well, like yourself included. Like, I pick up things from a lot of good guys and girls. Who's like a few? MJ would probably be, they'd pretty much be up there. In the last few years, I've taken a lot of inspiration because of with what I'm doing, like from natural bodybuilders in the UK. Like, I don't need to tell you, the standard natural bodybuilding in the UK is just phenomenal, and
Yeah.
there's guys who they just like cultivate a physique where you're like, 2 years ago I didn't think that was possible, but now I do, and it's a result of looking at them being like, okay, I need to up my game. Another good guy I discovered the last 2 years, and he kind of changed the way I think about training a little bit more, and kind of gave me permission to keep training like a bit of a lunatic, is Jeffrey Verity Schofield.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I really like him, and like some of his like way of doing things that actually brought on like helped me bring on some weak parts of my physique, my arms being one. So there's a lot of people, man, and down through the years I would have like went to seminars and followed like Eugene Teo. When he came to Ireland, like he was excellent. Renaissance periodization, Mike Israel's crew before they got big. I remember going to like a 2 day seminar up in Dublin 8 years ago, seeing those guys. Uh, like you have Mountain Dog, God rest his soul as well. Like I loved
Mhm.
John Meadows, Joe Bennett, hypertrophy coach, Owen Lacey, fantastic coach here in Ireland, like very smart guy. There's so many people, man, I could pull from. I've learned from so many different people.
Mm. I guess like we having obviously you've done what three prep. This is your third prep that you've done, right?
It's my third prep, but this is
Yeah.
last one was 8 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So third prep, obviously you've been learning from a lot of like, in the know people. I guess like, they're in the know to us. Maybe in an alternate universe they think they're cracked up conspiracy theorists. But what they teach definitely seems to work in the real world, that's for sure. Um so like obviously you've gathered plenty of knowledge to be in a position to prep yourself, which is what you did this year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What sparked the motivation to want to prep yourself this year?
Well, I actually wanted to work with a certain coach this year. Won't say who it was, but they're a well-known coach. and they've gotten great results. And I'd started the process in January of getting myself like starting to lose weight, getting myself geared towards this, and was seeing great results. And then I reached out to this coach, and then upon like get receiving the plan, I felt like the coach didn't really take into consideration what I was currently doing, and kind of gave me something that was so far from what I was doing. I was like, did you look at like what I'm doing right now? Does that not matter? Like that we're changing things so much? And I asked that question, and then I just realized, like, do you know what? I actually don't think I want someone else. It wasn't nothing to do with that coach. It was more on me. I
Mm.
don't think I actually wanted, I figured out I actually don't want to be told what to do. I want to be accountable to myself. And plus, not that coach's fault either. Like me reaching out when I'm already starting the prep, not a good idea. If someone came to me, which someone has before, if they came to me and they wanted to prep and they had already started and they were like 6 months away from a show, I've told them, I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I will do it if you want to do it next year, but I'm not going to do it this year. I'll give like I'll give credit to that coach as well. I probably should have reached out a lot earlier than what I did. But I just discovered I wanted to do it myself and be accountable to myself. It was like it was like, okay, this is more of a challenge to myself and a challenge to like, it was almost like a testament to like my knowledge and everything I've been doing the last few years. It's like the way I've been training, the way I've been doing things, what outcome will that elicit towards the end? Um, I was curious to see what that was because that'll tell me a lot about what I've been doing, if there's merit to it or not.
Mm. So I guess like with the setting up the prep itself, and you mentioned that you reached out to this coach after you started your prep, right? So how do you go about kind of planning out a timeline? I'm assuming you picked your shows first, but like, how do you decide? Okay, I need to start at X body weight, or what was your kind of thought process there?
So I was quite heavy because I was coming off the back of a full year of gaining in 2024, and I got really heavy. I've never been that heavy in my life. I worked up to 99 kilos, and I was svelte, man. I was like a svelte water buffalo, like arguably way too heavy before starting a prep. But it served its purpose. I definitely made serious improvements in that 1 year of training as well. Uh,
Hmm.
there was a lot of value in what I did. And I just set myself the goal. I was like, I'm going to set a timeline of at least 7 to 9 months. I knew the timeline needed to be a lot longer. And I suppose I knew the timeline needed to be, I was covered with a long timeline because I kind of like reverse engineered like the amount of weight I thought I needed to lose based on my previous preps. I was like, okay, the last time I competed 8 years ago, I was 73 kilos when I was on stage. Now I'm this weight. Okay, so I need to lose probably a kilo a week at the start. Then after like 6 months, probably needs to go down to half kilo. So I'd like kind of like set out a timeline where there was a certain amount of weight I needed to lose each week, and it just worked out that I could achieve this within like 7 to 9 months. And I knew 7 to 9 months of being in a deficit, not every day of that 7 to 9 months, but 7 to 9 months of most of my time spent in a deficit. I was going to get as shredded as I've ever been, and ultimately that was my goal. Like I just wanted to achieve condition I've never achieved. I knew I could do that within that timeline.
With making an assessment from your previous competition season, sorry. So you finished that at 73. So how did you estimate like what your next stage weight would be? Did you say to say, okay, maybe I've gained 3 kilos of muscle, 4 kilos of muscle, or did you say, okay, well that was what did you say 8 years ago? Oh
Eight
no,
years ago.
your oh that was your second show. Sorry, your second season was 8 years ago. Okay, so maybe said okay, gain 1 to 2 kilos of muscle per year, and maybe use that as a proxy.
Yes, exactly. I was aiming for 75 kilos. I was like, hopefully there's like 2 kilos definitely there. But I also knew I didn't get lean enough 8 years ago as well. I knew the conditioning like needed to be better, especially with the standard of bodybuilding, the evolution of natural bodybuilding the last few years. I knew the condition needed to be there. So I was like, okay, 75 kilos is probably a good place to aim. but it ended up being I never reached 75 kilos. I'm actually one of those people that overestimated how much weight I needed to lose, whereas most people probably underestimate how much weight they need to lose. Because on stage, I was 80 kilos, which I was blown away with. I'm like so
Mm.
happy. I find that unbelievable that I actually was like on stage in a natural, like in natural bodybuilding today, being 80 kilos. I was
Yeah,
stoked with that.
shredded. Yeah, shredded and jacked at 80 kilos. Yeah, once you break out of like the 70s, you're actually big. And it's funny, like because like the difference between natural and like enhanced is so great. They're like, yes, 80 kilos and shredded is huge. um, but look, we can only dream that we'll get up to 90 kilos and shredded one day. um, maybe. So how did you go about picking your shows for the season? Like, did you have any like was WNBF like is like a certain there was a certain reason for picking WNBF over maybe like the NBFI, UK FBA shows or
Funnily enough, Shane, the first show I signed up for this year was NBFI, and it was men's physique.
oh yeah,
So that was the plan initially. I hired a men's physique posing coach this year. I actually never spoke about this. Um, and you know him as well because I think he's a client of AJ as well. Kez,
oh yeah, yeah,
fantastic posing coach. Credit where credit's due. Amazing and um, worth his weight in gold. But I was working with him every week for 6 months. Had the board shorts on, but then towards the end, I was like, I don't know, like because the last time I competed was in men's physique, so I was like, okay, I'll just do the same thing again. But then as time went on, I was like, I don't actually like men's physique posing. This does not excite me. Like he was asking me because at the same time, I never like put on a thong before to do bodybuilding. This was the first season that happened, so I didn't know because I knew you had to like dig way harder to get the conditioning in the legs, in the glutes to be competitive on stage. So as I was getting leaner, I think it was about around like the 5 month mark in, I was like, "Do you know what? I think I want to do bodybuilding. I think that's something that excites me more." And I'm like, and I've built, I was like, come on, man, you've been training for 14 years. You've built a physique at this stage that should look well on a bodybuilding stage. So I was like, all right, cool. Set myself the challenge. Let's do bodybuilding. So I prepped for both bodybuilding and men's physique at the same time. So I was, I hired another posing coach for bodybuilding, Christian James, in the UK. Um, and it was just funny. Like I was practicing bodybuilding posing a lot, and then Kez would be like, "Are you practicing your posing?" And I was like, "No." And I just realized, like coming towards the end, I was like, I have no interest in men's physique. And I was like, I'm not going to stand up there in board shorts, like do two categories for the sake of it. If I don't want to be there, don't do it. Because I was like, more work on me. Yeah, I've invested a lot of money into it, but like ultimately, if I find out I invest this money to figure out that that's not who I am anymore, that's not what I want to do, and so be it. And it's not fair to other competitors who were up there as well, who actually really want to do well in that category, and then to have someone there who actually doesn't really care. That's not cool. So I just pulled plug. I was like, Kez, thanks so much, but I was like, I'm not a men's physique competitor. I know that now. So I scrapped that with NBFI, and that's when maybe 3 months into my deficit, I was like, WNBF seems to be the most prestigious like natural bodybuilding federation there is. I was like, let's give this a crack. And that was like the one I had my sights set on. Like that was the show I was gearing myself towards. And I think, dude, I was on my brother's stag. I can't remember what date it was. It was sometime in July. And someone on stag was another dude who's a bodybuilder. He was like, "Are you doing PCA, naturals PCA in up north?" I was like, "What the hell is the PCA?" He was like, "Oh, it's this show up north. You can win a sword." I was like, "No way can you win a sword." He was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I want a sword." I remember I like all the boys were in drinking. I went outside, went for a walk, because I had to get my steps up as well, balance.
yeah.
And I rang my girlfriend. I was like, "Hey, there's this show up north. It's the week before WNBF." And I was like, "You can win a sword." She's like, "That's so cool." She's like, "Do it. Like you may as well." And I was like, cool. After this weekend, I was like, I'll go and I'll book that. So I'd signed up for WNBF novice initially, and then I think PCA, it was only like based on height or weight. I think it was height. I signed up for that like maybe 2 months before the show.
And you ended up winning the So you ended up competing in middleweights in WNBF, right? So like obviously
Yes.
competing in novices probably probably not gonna be a fair call for you.
Yeah, well, I reached out because I hadn't competed in bodybuilding before. I
Yeah.
was a novice, and I actually reached out to WNBF prior to the show, just confirming. I was like, "Am I actually a novice?" Because I competed in men's physique 8 years ago, and I was like, "I'm actually now going to step on a bodybuilding stage with PCA the week prior to WNBF." So I was like, "Is that still considered an novice, or do I need to change and go into a go into a class based on weight?" And to be honest, I actually wanted them to say, yeah, you need to change because I wanted to actually go into a class that was actually going to be like harder. Like if you go into novice, the class is going to be a little bit easier compared to if you go into a weight class because you could have someone there who's been doing it for years, more experienced. But they said, no, it's cool, keep it the way it is. I was like, all right, fair enough. So I did PCA August 31st, and that went well. And then the following week, I did the novice category in WNBF as well.
Hmm. Yeah, the as I say the idea of like doing a novice class for me, I kind of had a similar mindset to you, to be honest, where I hadn't competed before, but I was like, I've been training for so long that I feel like I am not a novice. So I just went straight into competing as a middleweight. And it kind of worked against me because I ended up having one other person in my class, whereas the novice had a full lineup. So, like, while, you know, I kind of got what I wanted to a degree in regards to competing in the middleweights. I didn't also get the other part of what I wanted, which was to be compared against other people. Like I got to go into the overall, which was great, especially like James Melville was in the overall that year. That's the year he won
That's
his pro card, so that was nice to stand up alongside him. But for my first ever show, kind of underwhelming. Now, obviously, the numbers are much better now with the Irish shows. That was the first ever year of the WNBF, so yeah. Next time I'll hopefully have more than one other person on stage with me.
What year was that? What year did WNBF have their first show in Ireland?
That was 2022. But like even by the following year, way more people. Next year, way more people. What was the size of the show like for you this year? Because I didn't like I wasn't there this year, whereas I was at the last couple of years in attendance, so I got to see what the actual size of the show was like. So what was it like for you? Obviously, the stage setup and the photography was incredible this year.
WNBF was amazing. Like really, really a really good show. The stage lighting was incredible. The amount of competitors there was a lot. There was I think that was a stacked, really stacked show. Like for the novice category as well. I don't know, was there when I stood out, I can't remember, but was there 10 guys? Maybe like 8 to 10 guys on stage. So that's like I know it's not a very big stage. Like compared to PCA the week prior, they had a huge stage, very very spacious. Whereas like WMF was more compact. So two different feelings from the stage. But no, WMF was extremely well ran. They were so well organized. They had so many good people backstage that you know exactly what time people are on. Start warming up now. I have to give a lot of credit to WNBF Ireland. They went over and above with absolutely every aspect of that show because I don't think a lot of other federations take the same care with like a lot of the competitors. But no, that show was really well run. It was stacked. Lighting was incredible. And yeah, the photography, the videography from that was really cool. Like when you see those shots, you're like, wow. You work so hard all year. You're not going to be on stage for like a few minutes. Like all your work is geared towards that. It's really nice of them, the federation, to take that level of care with with everything, how it's ran, and then making sure they have like good people doing the photography and videography on the day. It's just like the cherry on top at the end. It's exactly what you want if you're doing a prep.
Mm. Yeah, like 100%. I think having a good backdrop, having good lighting, like they're just like the two fundamentals that like any type of show should have. And then obviously something to bring home with you in terms of the photography is lovely. I think one thing that they could really do with and it's just across all federations, it's just having get a live stream up and running for the Irish shows. Like it's one thing that Irish powerlifting does incredibly well. There's a live stream for every single competition meet. Like it's very professional. They always have like multiple different camera angles, some commentary as well. And for the sake of like helping natural bodybuilding grow, I think it would just be such a worthwhile investment, because I think like now that there's more natural shows, it's it's going to take the federation who makes that move first to be probably one that takes off a little bit more, because they're all starting to level up a little bit more, right? Like I think NBFI was like the only one for a long period of time. They didn't really have to do anything. They didn't even have to like put up an Instagram post really, and people would buy entries. Now WNBF comes in the scene. Obviously, they take a little bit of time to find their feet. They had really good photography and like social media presence this year. Relative to NBFI, not as good. PCA are always doing a great job. I think the PCA over in the UK could do. PCA Ireland could do what the PCA in the UK do, where they have like pretty much like a stage video for everybody who comes on stage, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
They should do that in Ireland, really, if they want to grow the Irish side as well. But like the more little things they add on, bigger it's gonna get. Because like untested bodybuilding in Ireland really is kind of dead to a degree. Like, you know, the shows are really not that big, and there's not really anybody doing that much, you know, extra media stuff. And I do think the natural side is growing massively, and you know, you see that in the UK as well. Like you talk about the UK scene already, but like what the likes of like AJ's been doing with his MBW show, you know, what the WNBF have been doing with Supernaturals, obviously WNBF Worlds, they had like their live stream this year and stuff like that, which was really good quality. Like these are the things that we kind of need to help the sport take off a little bit more, and it is like, you know, probably the healthier way to be to do bodybuilding. So obviously, I think it is important that we do put a measure in place to get it out there.
100%. It's spreading a good message. And I think they will go that way eventually. Like if WMBF, if that first show was only in 2022 and they've put on this show this year, only 3 years later, fair play to them. I think they will get there. And I was actually talking to Finbar and Lil this year. I didn't realize how much money actually goes into the drug testing. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
expensive, man, to
yeah,
do those urine tests on the day, and the polygraphs as well. So I think a lot of their funds were going towards that this year. Which when I heard the figure, I was like, "Whoa, that is a bit that's a lot of
yeah.
money." Um, so yeah, I think they will get there eventually.
Mm. Especially with the case that like WWF tests everybody, like everybody's getting the polygraph done, whereas in powerlifting only a couple of people every competition are getting tested. So I guess like the funding is going to be slightly different there, isn't it? And I guess more competitions that powerlifting would have on, or like say for example the Irish Powerlifting Federation, they have them on every couple of weeks to a degree, so the federation's obviously going to make more money. Whereas when it comes to something like WNBF, people are not buying their membership every year, really. People aren't buying their membership as they compete. They have to pay so much. There's only one competition, so obviously the money that they make for that competition, a lot of that goes in drug testing. So they do probably have like a leaner amount of money they can run with in regards to having these extra add-ons. But yeah, look, I do think, as you said, it'll come in time. I also do think there's the dilemma of you probably want a lot of people in seats, and sometimes having a live stream can also like encourage people not to go if like a competition's far away from them, if you get me.
I don't think so, because I think most people who are going to go to the show anyways are going to be
Yeah,
close ones
friends,
to you.
family.
That's who's going to be taking up the seats. And then, like, I have a lot of people, like, let's say my clients, for example. No, to be fair, actually, some of my clients actually did come down. They made the trip to Wexford. But then there's a lot of my clients who are like, oh, I'd actually love to watch that. They're not going to make the trip down, but they
Yeah,
will actually would love to watch.
yeah,
So a live stream for people like that would be great. So I actually don't think it would take away
yeah,
from the show.
yeah.
And like you said, it would probably help grow natural bodybuilding, spread that message a little better.
Yeah, that was like the one only arguments I could think of in my head. Was I was thinking about this during the week. But yeah, definitely do agree there, and especially if the venue is not like overly big, it's not as if like the place is gonna look empty if like suddenly people are watching on on the live stream. So I guess I want to continue on this, like, setting up of your own prep. So like you have your shows picked, timelines in place. How do you go about like monitoring yourself through the prep? Like, did you have like a check-in period with yourself where you're like collecting so much data and then like doing a review of the week and like running the average and making adjustments from there, or how did you go about that?
How I was sort of checking in with myself, there was no like set day every week where I would like take progress photos and put myself up against a wall. I was constantly assessing through um, posing videos because I was practicing posing quite frequently. And you're going to get a good idea of how your physique is looking through your posing. And then to be like, that was the visual, to be a bit more objective then with numbers, I just created like a Google tracking sheet that I have like the same one I give to my clients, tracking my body weight, tracking my calories, macros, steps, sleep. That was literally all that was on that sheet. And then it was just a case of seeing was the weekly average weight, was I losing at the rate of weight loss that I thought in my head that I needed to be losing it. And for the first 6 months, I didn't make any changes to my nutrition. I stayed pretty much between Monday to Friday, 2,500 calories. Um, it was after the 6 month mark when weight loss started to really slow down. But that's when I was like, okay, this is probably too slow at this moment in time. Now I need to make a change. And that was based off the rate of weight loss I was seeing. And then just like looking at my physique, being like, okay, I probably do need to like push a little bit more here because the conditioning was there in the upper body, but like the legs, let's say 3 months out, the legs, they were not where they needed to be. So I was like, okay, I need to bring that rate of weight loss. That needs to speed up a little bit. How I was like tracking and measuring my progress was through visuals, like posing footage, and then the Google tracking sheet that I created for myself. I was just looking for a certain amount, a certain rate of weight loss per week. But then after about 6 months, rate of weight loss started to slow down a little bit more. And given like the timeline I had, like 3 months left, the visuals I was seeing, upper body was there, the legs were not where I knew they needed to be. So I knew I needed to make changes based off rate of weight loss and then the visuals I was seeing through the posing footage. That was really
Mm,
it.
yeah, it's a very like intuitive way to go about prepping, and I guess like as you kind of said, uh, like during our conversation, you have built up like this like level of knowledge and self awareness to be in a position where you can essentially kind of make some decisions a little bit with less rigid methods and less rigid data, I guess. And like this kind of reminds you of the way Alberto Nunez kind of goes about his own prepping, where he doesn't even really track as such or use the scale too much in like the final few weeks of prep, and it's just very much based off like how he sees his physique responding to the approach. And I guess if you've done dieting processes enough and you kind of know what kind of certain body weights are going to look like, it does kind of like over time build this like mental database of like this is how, or even like a sensation of what it feels like to be dieting, right? Like I think I could get away with like lowering my calories a little bit more here. I think I could be pushing a little bit harder. I think I could be feeling a little bit more sucky. Um, and kind of using this again, your own intuition that you built up over years to drive those next decisions.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can actually, maybe not a lot of people will know who Alberto Nunez is, but I was going to say that is someone who I relate to a lot. I could just see a lot of myself and how he does things. I see a lot of myself in him, not to the same level. Like he's probably like, Jedi Master level, but like I just that's it is. I sort of do have that intuition from just doing this for years, gaining that self-awareness. And I think he has a way of saying this, like you kind of have to learn and play by the rules before you can bend them. I'm paraphrasing, but he says like something to that extent, which I can really relate to. Like once you understand like the fundamentals, and then you start doing things very rigidly, but then you realize if you keep like almost like a first principles mindset, things don't need to be as rigid. If you're just doing the things that are going to like are the bigger rocks that are really going to move the needle, you can afford to be like a little bit more flexible with your approach. So that's kind of the approach, the style I've taken this year, where it's like flexible rigidity. Like it's not like back in the day, like IIFYM, like trying to like change things completely just for the sake of doing it. It's almost like taking like let's say the rigidity of following a meal plan and then also like the fundamentals of dieting and like taking bits from IIFYM and like molding it into something that just like works really well for you.
Hmm. One of those kind of aspects I guess we could talk about is exactly how you went about your diet during the prep, because I think towards the end, right, a lot of people tend to get a lot more rigid, right? A lot of people start to like use meal plans. They start to like like completely eliminate like any type of sweet treats or anything like that. That may kind of give them that little bit more kind of food focus. You didn't do that at all, did you? Like you had like a weekly refeed in there, and you kept it in right to the end. So do you want to just explain first and foremost for the people at home, like what a refeed is and like what the purposes of it and like why you would use it during the prep?
So, okay, so basically, like throughout a prep or any like fat loss diet, you're trying to lose weight. So more time has to be spent dieting, in order for that to happen. But not all of your time has to be spent dieting. So I took that approach with my prep. I wanted to take like Monday to Friday because that was where I was most rigid with my routine and I was busier as well. Um, that's where I wanted to spend most of my time dieting because my time's taken up with work anyways, that I'm not too overly focused on food or have like too much time to like think about what I want to eat. I was just eating the same thing for the most part Monday to Friday. But at the weekends, I don't do any PT coaching. I'm with my girlfriend and I wanted to sort of have like to live somewhat of a normal life at the weekends as well and do things with her and eat like food with her, go out with her, like food with the two of us. We both love food, and like trying new things together. We get very like we're very passionate about the food we eat. So I wanted to keep that in. And at the start of the prep, I was like, I can afford to do this because we're very early on. My calories went from like, anyways, like during the bulk, it's like 7 days a week, 5 to 6,000 calories a day. So I was like, okay, my calories are like Monday to Friday, 2,700. I can afford to bring my calories up to like 4,500 calories, let's say Saturday and Sunday, and still be in a deficit um, overall. And like that was sort of the thinking behind it. But I was also curious to see how that would play out. So that's where the data comes in. So upon doing that, I saw that like after I would diet, like my lowest weigh-ins throughout the week, every week would be Friday, naturally. And then after Saturday and Sunday of increasing the calories, my weight would go up. Like Monday and Tuesday, they'd be high weigh-ins, but then every Wednesday it was looking like I was getting my like Wednesday, Thursday, my lowest weigh-in of the week, and the weekly average was coming down every week. So I was like, okay, I'm going to run with this. It seems wrong, like it's like I shouldn't be doing this, but objectively, the numbers are showing that I am losing the weight I need to be losing every week, and visually, I'm getting leaner. And then also, it's like this is actually I actually think this is helping me because like it just felt like a pit stop at the weekend, bringing the calories back up, allowing myself to have like more like treats and stuff I wasn't having during the week. So to go back to your question, like what is a refeed? A refeed is like where you a period, like let's say a day or 2 days. In my case, it was two back-to-back days where you increase calories to around like your maintenance calories, in order to kind of give back to the body a little bit more to take it out of the deficit. Um, there's like people who argue online, like, is it actually beneficial for your hormones or not? Is it enough time, like, spent at higher calories to do anything physiologically? Don't know. I think yes, if you do it back to back, I do think personally, I think it does. But the second thing is psychologically, it really does help you out because it's just a mental break. So that's what it really was for me. It was just that mental break at the weekend where I wasn't so overly focused on bodybuilding. I could eat, I could go to the gym and train, fueled up. I could eat food with my girlfriend. It just took me out of like the very like it took me out of like that intense mindset that you're in. You are doing a bodybuilding prep because you know yourself. It is so intense. It's all you think about. Every decision you make throughout the day, it's all geared towards that. So the weekends for me, like increasing the calories up Saturday and Sunday, was just my way of like, let's say, if you use the analogy of like coming out of water and just taking a gasp of air before going back down again.
And with the refeeds at the weekend, who as prep went on, just try to keep them around the same size. Like
Sorry, say
like yes, did you just try to keep like that those 2 days like protected in regards to still maybe having like a ceiling of the calories and then just like leaving them as is straight to prep and then just essentially kind of took from the other 5 days.
yeah, exactly. It was I kind of set some like guidelines around that. So it was like calories, 4,000 calories. Do not go above. Still keep the same protein target. Still get like 2 to 3 servings of fruit and veg throughout that day. And then whatever happens after that, usually like my girlfriend and I will go for pizza. Like I think I had pizza every week of this prep. And there was also like a lady who would come in from like a market outside of town into Galway like once every second week. We would get her cookies as well. And I would leave like 1,500 calories to spare for those cookies. And like that is very unorthodox. It's like probably not recommended by most coaches, but just that's the approach I took. And is it optimal? I don't know. But you could argue that it is optimal in the sense that it probably reduced my stress a lot. You know, there's an argument for and against like the approach I took with this stuff.
Yeah. Well, like, I think like the main thing is that you adhered to your diet and you got the result at the end of it, right? So regardless of whether it's like optimal in a theoretical sense or not, like that reality, we don't know if it exists, right? Like that path was not walked, and you can't walk that path again, right? Because the situation will be different. Um, so like I think regardless of whether it is like something like coaches would recommend or not, like every coach would want you to get the result. So if like that's going to be the thing that's going to drive you to adhere long term, and if I guess like the argument against it is like, oh well, if you do this for long enough, that maybe that will drive you to want those foods more and make the midweek that a little bit harder. But I think one thing that you develop as you get like more into it, you've got more years under your belt, is like you don't actually really get that. Like you don't really have those like residual kind of pangs or cravings that come from eating sweet treats or from having pizzas like midweek, because you kind of just develop a enjoyment of that like midweek, right? You're not like on Monday be like, oh, like eating in my lunchbox like I dread this. I wish I was eating my pizza again. You're just like, okay, I had my fun, and now I'm straight back to the other very important part of the process, the part that's really kind of leading me to there. And I do think as well, like even from my own perspective of like coaching my own clients, if somebody's if somebody was trying to maybe use the weekend as like just a period to maybe eat foods that are in their mind bad, right? Then that comes down to addressing issues with relationship with food or putting foods on pedestals
Mm.
versus anything else, right? So I do think like there's massive pros to it, of course, because it's promoting adherence. It gets you the result, and then as well, there's also other information that you're going to be getting through doing the refeeds at the weekend. Like you're essentially having 2 high days where you could potentially be loading more glycogen, right? Maybe that's giving you actually a bit of fullness of physique that you may see on a Sunday morning or Monday morning, and that's kind of giving you an idea as to what type of load from a carbohydrate perspective you can maybe use during the likes of your peak week, right? So it is serving a purpose. The question for you here is like, do you find by using a strategy that you actually were able to maintain train performance better through your prep?
I think so. Yeah, yeah. I definitely think so because like with my training performance, I more or less stayed in the pocket with like the weights I was lifting um all throughout my prep. And if we take like into consideration the fact that I maintained I stayed in the pocket with my performance this year while losing a lot of weight, like losing 18 kilograms. And like you could argue that I almost got stronger and made more progress because I was a lighter person, still lifting those numbers. Um, I think the weekends were helping with that. Part of that just comes down to my mindset in general with training. I didn't want to give in to that mindset of like, oh, I'm dieting now, I'm going to get weaker. I approached every session like an absolute lunatic. I was like, I'm going to go in here. I don't care if I'm dieting. I'm going to go in here with the mindset that I can build muscle throughout this phase, which I actually think I did probably build a little bit of muscle, at least in the first 3 to 4 months of this prep, because the fat reserves were there. The body, like even though I was like in a deficit of energy with my calories coming in, there was fat tissue there to use, and I was still like progressing in my training. So definitely mindset is a lot to do with that as well. But 100%, like the weekends, the refeeds at the weekends, they did help out a lot there too.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, right? Because like you're obviously well, not super compensated with glycogen, but like you are starting to refill those glycogen stores that are getting pretty depleted during the week. That's going to give you some kind of benefit from a training performance standpoint. Even as you said there, the psychological balance, like you already are coming in with the mindset of I am still here to train and still here to progress. I'm not like playing defense. I'm on offense right now. That plays a massive role. And then as well, just like I ate a lot of food this weekend, so naturally I should perform better. So like there's all of these like little kind of psychological benefits that come in to help it. So I think like refeeds are definitely a tool that have become a lot more popular in preps, like across like the last few years. Like when I was working 3D I had a refeed every weekend. Those 2 days kind of simulated my peaking strategy towards the end of it, and that's how we use them to collect data.
Yep.
So they are. I think once you can manage them well, like, once you can kind of commit to that like structure guidelines that you kind of mentioned yourself, right? Where you had like the ceiling, the protein target, you had some behavior guidelines around that. You stick to that, and you don't let it become the thing that is like you're the only thing you're looking forward to as well. Like throughout the week, like I think that also kind of maybe speaks to maybe poor motivations through a prep as well. If like the only thing you're looking forward to is like the weekend, have that bit of release. I think like you almost be looking forward to every aspect of the prep to a degree, like the digging and the filling up.
100%. But probably towards the end of the prep, it did end up being that way. I have to say, man, for the first 6 months, like it was absolutely fine. Like there was no negatives of the prep for the first 6 months at all. It's when we got down to it, when the weight was like the body fat was getting really low. Regardless of the approach you take, well, like high days of the weekend, if the body fat is low, you're going to feel it regardless. So I was definitely feeling it towards the end, and like the food focus was probably, I think it was after WNBF Ireland. That's when the food focus started creeping in. That's when the food shows crept in. I was like
Mm.
all prep. I was like, yes, haven't gone near like MasterChef Australia or any of that. But when it came to that, I was going to Worlds, and like I had to continue prepping. The food focus definitely started creeping in around that time for like the last 2 months. But you touched on something earlier, which was very personal to me, is like the relationship with food and like the sort of issues like this stuff can create if we're not careful. My past, when I did this the first time, I did follow like a rigid meal plan. I didn't veer off it. After that plan was done and I lost whatever weight I lost, I gained like 13 kilograms after 1 month of that diet being over because of how restrictive it was. And I I didn't have any eating disorders, but I developed some disordered eating behaviors. On 2 occasions, I binged and forced myself to get sick right after those 2 occasions. Not a good place to be. Like mentally, I was like so tapped out. I didn't think this bodybuilding stuff was for me. So that was something I had at the forefront of my mind as well. It was like how I do this is important because I didn't want like after the show, I didn't want like to go through that ever again. So the fact that I did this and like maintained more of a healthy relationship with food throughout the whole thing and did as well as I did, it's something I'm actually quite proud of, and it's something I preach to my clients, that I follow like the same things I'm teaching them, that I do the same, and it works, and like the relationship with food is fine. So the fact that I like got through this, came out the other side unscathed in that manner, I'm very, very happy with that.
Yeah, that's it's a good sign of growth, isn't it? Like mental growth over years. Like it's obviously it's shit to hear that you had to go through that to get to where you are now. I think a lot of people are in a similar position who do get into bodybuilding initially, right? I think there are still probably a lot of people who never learned that lesson that you've learned, right? Where they are still just thinking the only way I can prep or get in shape is if I am following the rigid meal plan, and they're never really learning, what the principles of setting up a diet are. What are the backbones? What are the behaviors that we're looking to aim at towards time? Because like one thing I'm very big on myself is like, regardless of whether I was prepping for a show or prepping for a powerlifting competition, like the principles that I follow with my nutrition, they don't really change at all. Just like the specificity of them, the intensity, uh, flexibility I give myself, that changes, and that's really it. Because like whether I'm gaining weight, losing weight, the principles remain the same, and it's usually dedicated towards calorie appropriate diet, appropriate for your goals, appropriate for the direction of your goals. You're eating a sufficient amount of protein intake throughout the day, relative to, what your goal is: gain weight, lose weight, maintain weight, whatever it may be. Having a high fiber intake, prioritizing whole foods, fruit, veg, whole grain carbs, that type of thing. Keeping on top of hydration. What we would think are basic foundational principles, but not a lot of people would think about. And I think a lot of bodybuilders unfortunately get into it thinking, I need to eat cream of rice after I train. Cocoa Pops, I can't do that. Cocoa Pops, they're for children. Like, they come in a box, with fucking monkey on it or whatever it may be. Like, they create these like good food, bad food. This is a food that's promoted by my bodybuilder. I never hear my bodybuilder idol talk about this one, so it's probably not good, right? I think these are unfortunate like holes and rabbit holes that people can fall into, and people never end up like learning the approaches that we would have come to. So like, I guess like when like you obviously would have picked up a lot of where would you have picked up like a lot of the kind of nutritional information that you would have now, like that you would have used through this prep?
Well, as I said, like the first time I prepped, it was a rigid meal plan and it was given to me by a terrible coach. And then the following year I prepped again, and that was under the guise of Jeff Alberts. And he introduced me to like macros, and that was probably my first introduction to actually like this is the principle of how a diet works. And if you just hit these macros and stay within the calories, you can actually swap out and change foods when it suits you if you want to like switch something up. That was like to have that both experiences so close, like a year apart, was incredible. So that was like my first introduction to it. Like 3DMJ, I still think to this day they don't get enough credit. And if you're a natural bodybuilder and you don't know who they are, you really should like know who they are. And I'm going to give credit to as well Mike Israel, but not current Mike Israel. I think there's a lot of stuff he's doing the last year, and he's getting a lot of slack for it. Some of it's unfair. I think personal attacks are unfair, but I think some of it is justified with like some of the methodologies. But Mike Israel, like 5, 6, 7 years ago, like RP, they were doing some incredible content, and one of the best nutritional videos I ever watched was Mike Israel's TED Talk on nutrition. I think it's like the landscape of something to that extent. It's 15 minutes, I think, 20 minutes. It's one of the best videos I've ever watched on nutrition. It's so well broken down. He's basically saying, like, there's no good and bad foods. 80% of the time, if you eat good, 20% of the time, you can eat da 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 da. And we actually need a balance. Like, we need to eat everything. And I think with bodybuilders as well, especially nowadays too, I think bodybuilders can be quite like scared of foods. Like if you put like Cocoa Pops, like you're saying, in their face, they're just like, ugh. Like it's just like it's bro, it's not that deep. It's fine, and like they just think like everything needs to be the same because like they could react badly to a food.
Mm,
uh,
yeah.
but actually think you can like you can almost like manifest this stuff. Like it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you think if you eat something, you're going to have a bad reaction to it, I think it will happen. So I think it's almost making you more fragile in a sense if you think you need to avoid these foods. Whereas it's like that's not the case at all. Like I honestly, my advice to people would just be to learn the fundamentals of like why of how this all works, and then how do you apply it to you? Because everything you touched on a few minutes ago, hydration, protein, be in a calorie deficit. Um, that can look different for everybody. And the key to this stuff and doing it long term and doing it well is just like making all this work for you. Like you're going to hear, people are going to listen to this today and they're going to like probably pick up some things, but it's like, okay, you don't need to like copy exactly what I do, but maybe it's like making you think a little bit differently. It's like, okay, try something, but maybe the way I do it, it mightn't necessarily work, but you might do it a little bit differently to me. And then that's the way that works for you. Like just don't just like be curious. Like just take what you're hearing today and see how can you apply it to your situation.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that's like a necessary part of anybody process is listening to things like this and just trying out those things, you know, because like ultimately at the end of the day, you can never like look into a crystal ball and ask what's the exact result if I do this for a longer period of time, because you're gonna find that okay, maybe for you listening, you just diet and straight through the week. That's the best way for you to adhere to your diet and get the result. Maybe you do better with having those refeeds, you know, like the two realities can exist and both can just be as optimal as each other. The main thing is like what can you stick to, what allows you to get the result. These are all just methods. Straight calories straight through the week, train day calories, non train day calories, if you feed at the end of the week. These are methods. The principle is managing energy balance. Like, and that's all it really comes down to. So once you're able to understand things from a principles perspective, you're able to have like a list of methods that you can try, you can see what you respond to, which promotes best adherence, and then that becomes like your approach, right? And again, then if for whatever reason you decide that this particular approach is not working for you right now, go to another one. And that the exact same comes with the likes of training programming, whether that's, you know, trying to build up a lift. Okay, well, what's the volume I need to be doing? What's the lift I need to be doing? The lifts are going to bring up that lift or bring up this muscle group. What type of intensity do I need to be training at? Think about frequency. They're all variables. The what was it? The principle will be specificity of your programming. Can you overload it? Can you recover? And these type of things. So once you learn things from a first principles perspective, the training stuff, the nutrition stuff, it becomes a hell of a lot easier, and you're less likely to fall for bullshit online as well. That's like the big thing, because yeah, like this, I'm sure you probably agree. There's probably a lot of stuff you see online, and you can see straight through, but it often they just become fads, trends that just circle around, and it's always kind of like, again, come back to the same thing. Very very common one is like, oh, want to lose weight? Here's keto. Keto's popular for a while, and then all of a sudden, okay, well now carnivore is popular for a while, and then intermittent fasting comes back around, and then macros comes back around. Yada yada yada.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I actually think it's necessary to get to this point with nutrition because then you can actually focus on what really matters, which is the training. I created when I was like fresher at the start of this prep, I was like quite witty online with my posts. I was creating like all these memes and stuff, and I was having a good time. And like one of the memes I created was like do you know like the Chad meme, and then there's like the dork beside him. So the dork was like, now that I'm dieting, I really need to focus on my nutrition a lot more. But then the next side was like, Chad was like, now that I'm dieting, I really need to focus on my training a lot more. And like that's sort of how I felt throughout this year. Nutrition should almost be just like running in the background. Like
Yeah.
it's not something that should be taking up a lot of mental space because really, once you understand the fundamentals, it's quite simple. And then you can actually allow yourself to focus and put time and more energy into your training, which is the most important thing. It's going to be the biggest bang for your buck. It's actually going to be the thing that gives you the physique you want because you're going to start training harder and put more into it. And like training, I think is more complex than nutrition. It's just you're going to be able to put your resources more towards that than nutrition. If you're constantly spinning your wheels with your nutrition, you really need to get on top of that because you're never going to get to where you want to be with your training or your physique.
Yeah, I'm glad you have that opinion too, because it's definitely one I hold. I've had plenty of other very jacked people on the podcast say the exact same too. So maybe if you listen to the audience, maybe you should be taking notes. Success leaves clues, as you were talking about earlier. But yeah, like it's I definitely the more I've matured, the more I kind of realize this, because yeah, as you said, nutrition should just be like a default behavior at a
Hmm.
certain point. And then after
Yeah.
that, there's so much that you can learn from just getting better at training. Like, just like getting better at executing a certain movement, directing the intensity towards a specific muscle group, cueing of an exercise, setups, whatever it may be. And that's ultimately where the progress is coming from as a bodybuilder, right? Like, you can have a fantastic run of consistency with your protein, but if you don't have a consistent run of progressing your training, you are not going to grow muscle, right? Like, you can have a fantastic nutrition setup, but if you don't have a good structure to your training, you're not progressing. Nothing's really going to happen from a physique development. And again, one thing that's very apparent from looking at like anybody who's built a lot of muscle, like with bodybuilders, powerlifters, are doing at a high level, they're all animals in the gym. Like, they all are super consistent. They're always talking about the training. They're always looking for new ways to get better and better and better. It's really not like something that, like, even like still, like, student of the game, trying to think of different ways I can improve a certain lift, or like bring up a certain body part. And that requires, again, a bit more like introspection as to what can I do better. But like at a certain point, the nutrition just doesn't really get it, and even there's so much. I think like the more like actual longitudinal research that comes out on like bodybuilding specific nutrition, the more you realize that so much of the minutia that people would have sweated over like years ago, whether that's like meal timing, like protein timing, so much of it just doesn't really fucking matter. Like, once you're kind of abiding to big principles, whereas like training, there's so much left that we still don't have like complete answers to. Like, even some of it, the meta regressions that came out like last year, and frequency, volume, intensity, like they're like more strengthening our understanding of things that we feel like we already knew. But at the same time, even the guys who like done the research are like, this is not like direct answers nonetheless, right? Whereas nutrition is a bit more, can be a bit more of a, can give you those more direct answers.
Hmm. Yeah. Totally agree. Think it's the same.
I was going to ask you here, because we don't have a huge amount of time here before we're going to wrap up. But like, you did WWF Ireland, right, at the end of September, right, and then WNBF Worlds end of November. How do you deal with that long time between shows?
So WNBF was actually the start of September because I
Starts
remember
like even longer.
end of August. And yeah, that was tough. That was like, that's when prep started to get hard for me. Like, I mentally, I think I was tapped out for a little bit after WMF Ireland. And I like a week or two, like a period where I took a diet break, like Monday to Sunday for those 2 weeks. Like, my calories were up. And that was just sort of like, again, just get myself ready psychologically, because I wasn't ready after WNBF Ireland to keep doing what I was doing, to going into WNBF Worlds. So that was actually probably the toughest period of the prep. That's where food focus actually became more of a thing. That's where the energy slumps, throughout the prep, got a whole lot worse. And that's when I probably had to like refine my training like a little bit more. So I made it to WNBF Worlds in one piece. So that was tough. Like, I suppose what kept me going was that, I suppose, it's perspective, Like, at any point, if this gets too tough or too overwhelming, I can pull the plug and I can eat as much food as I want. That's like, there's people who like suffer with starvation and like being deprived of food, who don't have that choice. So like, we're making it a choice, and we're doing it for cosmetic reasons, and like, not just cosmetic reasons, like to express ourselves. Like, this is the thing I love doing. This was the challenge I had set for myself. It's short lived. So these were things like, when things get tough, I would remind myself of. And it was also, looking back, like, it's those tough days that actually make this whole entire thing special. Not everybody can do this. People try to do this. Preps are abandoned. This is really hard to do, especially if you want to achieve like the standard of conditioning that you need to achieve in today's world of natural bodybuilding. So you can actually, in those tough moments, you can actually take pride in that. This is actually what makes this special. So I
Mm.
suppose it's my mindset, like, towards the prep, that allowed me to allowed me to keep going. And as well as that, like the approach I took, like I still kept the high days in at the weekends as well. Those checkpoints were definitely much needed, like towards the end, like those last 2 months of the prep.
Yeah, definitely. As it's like rounding off, you start counting the days down a little bit more, and
100%.
it becomes you have to play like the mental games with yourself. I used to always like just tell myself to get like to the next thing within that day, whether it's like, okay, let's just get to the next meal, or let's just get this walk out of the way, and then you're at your next meal, or like okay, when I get into bed at the end of the night, that's one day closer to the goal, right? So like almost like making out my like diary at the start of each day gave me like that like day to day checklist that each action that I do now, I'm that little bit closer to achieving the goal at the end of it, and you know wasn't necessarily I wouldn't necessarily I was looking forward to prep being finished at the start of it, but definitely towards the end you do get like I did like 6 shows, so I definitely was a bit more like spent from a physical perspective. Like I think doing that many shows took more of a toll on my body than my
Mm.
mental aspect, and because of the I had such a constant change of environment from traveling for the shows, right? Because I did like did a couple of shows in Ireland, then I did UK, Budapest, and then I was in Las Vegas for a week while Emma did Natural Olympia, and then the following week we went to LA. So we're in like the States for 2 weeks, and obviously these are environments I haven't never been in, right? So I was getting like this like yeah, it's just my brain is being fed of just all these different new environments, new gyms. So it was like a lot more exciting. Whereas if I was just doing it the entire time at home, like the way you did, like where you just had like again start September to end November, I could say it would have been a lot more mentally taxing for myself. But you had the benefit of that you didn't have to have your body going through multiple peaks at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. But I have to say, man, the whole thing, like looking back, it was incredible. Like the year was just amazing. I wouldn't change a thing. Um, and again, like those like I do think what makes prep special is that it is tough. Like not a lot of people can do it. So just take pride in that as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like it's definitely one of those things where you get to the end of a year, you can give yourself a big pat in the back, and then everything else does kind of have a lot more. You have a lot more perspective towards other hard things. Like it's like the constant chronic low hum of just like the stress that you have essentially on your body, and definitely when you get towards those peak moments, the clutch moments, like when you're peaking for a show. Did you find actually when like you were doing peak week? Did you find that you had like higher hunger levels or anything like that? Like I definitely one thing I noticed was when I was doing my peak weeks that I had that like higher drive to eat that a little bit more.
Well, funny enough, my last peak week for Worlds, I got a bug.
Oh,
So that's how my week started for WNBF Worlds.
proper
Um,
depletion.
so I really depleted. But that was WNBF Worlds, like for PCA and WNBF Ireland, hunger during that week. I don't think it was anything too, nothing like really jumps out at me. I don't think I was too indifferent like
Mm,
throughout those weeks. I think like the excitement kind of takes over
yeah.
because you're so close. So I didn't really, you kind of care about food a little less during those weeks because you're that close to the show.
Talk me through how you recovered from the bug then, just before you did WNBF Worlds, because you had a pretty good place in there at Worlds. It was second, was it?
No, third. I
Third.
came third. I could have easily came fourth as well. Like the guy who came fourth, his glutes looked insane. Like he had, I'm gonna say he probably had the best conditioning on stage, but probably why I probably came ahead of him was just muscularity, probably a little bit more. Depends what the judges are looking for. I came third. I was delighted. Like I would have been happy with the top five. So coming third, I was really, really happy. How I recovered from the bug was just drink. I forced myself to try and like keep my liquids up. I really didn't want to like be consuming anything. You know what it's like when you get a bug. It's actually like the worst thing ever. But I was forced myself just to drink water, get up, just move my body a little bit. Luckily enough, it wasn't the worst bug. I've had worse bugs, um, and I think like after 16 hours, I started to see food. Like I tested the water with like lean mince, burgers, like bacon, dry toast.
Mm.
I ate that, sat, was like, okay, that's going down. That's good. And then the next day, just tried to like just tried to introduce foods that didn't like have me feeling any sort of way. But look, it might have benefited the peak in a way because I got my lowest weigh-in of the entire prep the day before I stepped on stage for Worlds. It was 77.2 kilos. So look, it's not ideal at all, but at the same time, I was like, don't let it like it's not that deep. Don't let it get to you. Just keep. I didn't get stressed out over it.
Yeah, yeah. I think like that's probably one of the key parts of it as well. Key parts of peak week is don't get stressed. So if you're able to kind of like keep your mind like happy and calm, it's obviously going to benefit you. And then when you woke up on show day, what did you weigh from 77.2 to
I don't know because I didn't have a
no?
scale. Like I had to
Okay.
weigh myself the day before
Oh,
show
for the
because
weigh-ins, like yeah.
yeah, they had to weigh you.
Okay.
So I don't know. I'd imagine with all the food I ate and like from previous shows, I was probably like high 79 kilos. You could
Yeah.
argue maybe 80, but I'd say I was just like high 79s after I filled up.
Yeah. Look, pretty full from the pictures anyway. So like, I mean, probably close to that. But yeah, look, man, I had Savage season, and it was definitely very enjoyable to watch, and gave me a lot of motivation for the next time I do mine. And thank you very much for joining me today on the podcast. I guess like one thing I ask you is like if there are any words of wisdom or anything else you want to kind of share before we wrap up, feel free.
Yo, first of all, thanks for having me. Great conversation. It's actually nice to talk to you. And I'm really looking forward to seeing like when you do start prep. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that turns out. I have a fair idea how it will go for you. Words of wisdom for people. I suppose don't forget that you love this. Make sure you actually love doing this. Because like first and foremost, like I really love all this. I really do. And when you love it, it's just not that much of a chore. So just keep that in the back of your mind. And if you're not enjoying things, then maybe it's time to like reassess like your current approach, your current strategy, because this stuff is not all doom and gloom. This is actually a privilege to be able to do all this, and it's helpful if you see it that way. So do this in a way where it's actually conducive with your lifestyle, that you don't feel like you're completely uprooting your lifestyle, having to change everything and who you are as a person in order to get the job done. Um, like stay true to who you are and do this in a way which feels good to you. Just because someone else online does it a certain way doesn't mean you have to emulate exactly how they do it, become that person. I think the key to this stuff is like figuring out how to go about this the best way that's suited to you. So I suppose that's how I would end this.
There you go. Excellent. Thank you very much for that, David. So yeah, look, what I'll do is I will leave all of your info in the bio below where to follow you. You have a pretty good YouTube page going there, don't you? So what's the handle for that?
Just David Shaughnessy. I need
Dave
to get
Shop.
back doing the YouTube
Yeah,
thing again, but I just gave myself a good break
yeah.
after.
You after prep. Yeah, you do need to kind of give yourself a little bit of discount. So yeah, look, I look forward to following along with all your next ventures and seeing how this off season is going to be going for you. Thank you very much for joining me. Anybody at home, if you have enjoyed the podcast, do make sure to give it a rating or review. Podcast platform you're listening on. Go over, follow David, follow his YouTube, all that kind of crack. And sure, look, we will talk to you in the next one.